young, beautiful, mobile Batrachina. Equal third in the all-around World Championships. And one of many in contention for the all-around Olympic gold and some of the individual championships. Rhythmic, while essentially balletic, is a tremendous test of coordination, because whichever hand apparatus they use, they have to be able to throw it and catch it with the left and with the right hand while doing the aesthetic maneuvers. And being able to kick the leg up is one thing, but being able to hold it up is another. That's a sign of strength within the range of the movement. This competition, the four-hand apparatuses, a rope, ball, clubs and ribbon. Just look at that for strength. Split leap into throw and catch. Lovely body wave into the toe raise there. Right-handed throw into catch on the front leg in the split. Excellent range, and there's so little difference between all of these top performers. Only 0.675 separated 5 gymnasts in the World Championship, so that'll give you a clue as to the closeness.
The 95 world champion with the ball, getting off to an electrifying start there. And the crowd certainly appreciating it, as the judges. 10, Larissa Lukianenko for Belarus, the world champion in this, the rope.
Say the bodysuit is very effective for rhythmic gymnastics. Really highlighting the tremendous range of the legs, which tend to get lost in the background normally. A little slip up there. Ring leap. Notice their shoes. Just little leather straps over their toes, mainly to prevent them parting their toes on many of the numerous spins. That was a nice high throw and a very accurate catch. Gives skipping a new dimension. And finishing with not only a splendid triple throw of the rope into the roll, but a wonderful body wave and acrobatic bend at the end. Remember, they are not allowed anything other than rope.
Brenyan Mizutin still leading. We've had 2 performers score a 10 in the rhythmic rope competition, and this is also one of the favourites, the all-around world champion, Ekaterina Sarabianskaya for the Ukraine. Joint world champion with Bulgaria's Petrova in the 95 Worlds, and we can see why. Absolutely elegance personified. A true sign of skill when any performer can show a relaxed appearance, because so often the strain shows on the face, and believe you me, the effort put into the floor routine is equally as difficult as a shot putter, but a shot putter doesn't smile like that.
The judges have already awarded 10 to Batrachina and Lukianenko, and for me they've got to award another one because very difficult to separate these top performances. And indeed the judges were to award a third 10 to Sebrianskaya for the Ukraine, giving us a three-way tie. Batrachina, Lukianenko and Sebrianskaya all on the perfect 10 for a three-way tie in the big bars. First up for Russia is Dina Kochetkova.
Coached by Arkaev. Nice back giant, full twist into Kachev, immediate under somersault onto the bottom bar. Clear to handstand Shushanova. Undershoot half turn into Hecht. Nice tension there, building up the giants into the dismount. Double to finish, Paikin whip out. And quite unusual to see the majority of the bar work done on the high bar, facing the low bar. Slight feathering of the feet then, loss of tension in that full turn on the opening move, but there the Kachev, taken from men's bars. And obviously McGillney, but as I say, I echo, it's wonderful to have him back.
Elena Piskin from Belarusia, the 93 world champion.
And hardly recognizable since her appearance at the World Championships in Birmingham in '93. I would say 6 or 7 kilos lighter. And she always had the potential to be a brilliant gymnast. Tremendous power. But obviously she's cut out a few cakes and worked a little harder, and now she's really hitting the highlights.
9.850 is the target. Dina Kochetkova for Russia has had the best performance so far.
Nice hop change in the giant. Once again, it's a full pirouette and actually leaving go of the...
And Hatakara goes into second position. Eric Poujard so far has seen off both the world gold and silver medalist in the men's competition, and this could throw the women's A-bars event wide open. Lilia Podkopayeva, the 95 world champion, but silver medalist in the individual apparatus of the worlds in Sabai, and this the asymmetric bars.
And if you remember rightly, I forecast that she'd win the world championships, and she did. I meant to telephone you on that one.
You did, I remember it so clearly.
But superb, and I am allowed a favourite, and this is mine. Full twisting double back, and for me the best routine so far by far. Good shapes, excellent extension, rhythmical, dynamic.
And since claiming the world title, changed personality one feels for Lilia Podkopayeva. Before, often looking very nervous and tentative in routines and in big competition in front of European crowds. But now, with the world title behind her, a focused and competitive performer going into top position, 9.887. Elvire Teza of France, very much one of their young stars, just 14 years of age from Reunion Island. Picked up a lot of valuable experience in the World Championships, her first in Sabai last year. And they've got a lot of hopes pinned upon this youngster for a possible medal in Atlanta this summer.
Very nice. Pike Jaeger, oh lovely. Clear back circles. Nice bit of variety here. Some of the movements that were used back in the 60s and 70s when the bars were narrower. Double front dismount. But how nice to see more variety, because whilst asymmetric bar work is very exciting, it's also very samey. I hate to use the word, but that did have some spice and some difference, even though the cut from the backseat circle was not a tremendously difficult move. There the back clear circle. Amazing amount of strength needed there into the back straddle. Can't call that a catch-up. And then the cut.
And that's a tremendous performance for the 14-year-old. 9.862. World out for Teza, this 14-year-old with a very creative routine. We're going to go into another quick commercial break, but we'll be back with the hard man from Brest.
Straight into the lead for Chechi.
Elena Vitrichenko of the Ukraine, the first finalist in the ball competition. A world champion herself in the ribbon, still to be contested here at Bercy.
The artistic gymnasts who feel as though they've done enough work on range of movement might go home and think differently after working alongside the rhythmic gymnasts. But of course, bearing in mind that the rhythmic gymnasts could not maintain the amount of strength that the artistic gymnasts have. Two very different sports in a way. There, a needle stand and wonderful turn. But of all the gymnasts, the rhythmic gymnasts we've seen so far, for me, by far the best leg line. Beautiful musical interpretation.
Three medals from the last World Championships of Rhythmic Gymnastics. Elena Vitrichenko getting the ball final underway, and quite rightly pointed out by Monica Phelps, beautiful interpretation of both movement and music.
But I wouldn't suspect a 10 on that. I think she just had it, yes, 9-9. She had a little drop of the hand apparatus, which she did discuss.
Demyanov scoring 9.687. Yanina Batarechina, the star she had in the first final of this competition, with a 10 in the rope.
Not only the skill of the use of the hand apparatus, but these gymnasts work like members of any ballet company. They do 6 to 7 hours of a day pure classical ballet, besides the skills required for rhythmic gymnastics. But of course, in a way, all four pieces of apparatus are quite similar, in as much that they're throwing and catching, and it's just a hand apparatus of different shapes. Nice double pirouette with the leg right up to the vertical, and side leap with the back catch. Beautiful rond de jambe into that final position, but unfortunately intended to be held and not. So she probably had a penalty for that last pose, which was such a pity.
And that slight loss of balance could throw the competition wide open, because Batarechina, well, she's the world champion in this, the ball, but with Lukianenko and Serrano of France still to make their performances, that will certainly mean the difference between a 10 and, as you see there, a 9.933. One performer left in the women's ball final, Larisa Lukianenko for Belarus. She's already picked up 110 in that three-way tie for top position in the rope. Now let's see if she can take top place away from the world champion of the ball, Yanina Batriachina. 9.933 is the target score.
Extremely slim, Lukianenko does not look over-dieted or over-trimmed. She manages to keep brilliant femininity in this very, very sensual routine. The most appealing routine by far to date, from my point of view. Light-hearted, jazzy, but with all the skill and beauty. Very reminiscent of Kutkaita, a Soviet world champion from about a decade ago. Exquisite handling of the apparatus, very sensual, wonderful interpretation to the music, even down to the bounce of the ball, and different.
And that's no question in convincing two commentators. She's got to convince the judges, but both Monica and I easily giving that our top vote for the women's ball final. It will need to be above 9.933, but tremendously entertaining from start to finish, and certainly capturing the imagination of the audience, and also one or two of the artistic gymnasts watching on there, finding it thoroughly entertaining. The question of the gymnastic skills as well. Larisa Lukianenko for Belarus takes top position and picks up her second perfect score of this France Telecom Invitational. Complement in second, and Vitrichenko in third position. Welcome back to Bercy Stadium as we move on to the final of the women's beam, and also the club exercises or performances in the rhythmic section of this invitational competition, courtesy of France Telecom. The world champion of 1995, the all-around honor going to Lilia Podkopayeva of the Ukraine. And in this, the beam, in Sabai in Japan, Lilia was to claim the silver medal, only to be pipped by the narrowest of margin by Mo Huilan of China. Very much one of the big favourites for a whole host of medals in Atlanta. This is an important part of Lilia's preparation for this summer's campaign.
Change leg side leap. I think it's fair to say that beam used to be called the bogey of gymnastics, but the risk factor on all apparatus is so great that it's almost reduced the risk factor on beam. Oh dear. I must stop saying that. That's rather a nasty fall, but if you've done that move, then most gymnasts have done a mill circle around the beam trying to stay on it. But unfortunately, that counts as a fall from the apparatus, fall on the apparatus, and so she doesn't have a chance of getting in the medals unless 2 or 3 people fall off as well. Front into a W jump. One leg bent, one leg straight, that's what its name is. And I think that some of the leaps, even by the very, very top gymnasts, are questionable as regards their continuity, because they must include within their series a gymnastic series, and to me a series isn't so with an extra arm swing. But a very well landed double back, obviously well in hand, and perhaps had planned to use a full in back out, but for the fall in the middle. And there she was just off when she went into the Corbett chest row, and that 5/10 or even more costing her a medal.
Ekaterina Serbianskaya of Ukraine, with the club's the world champion of rhythmic gymnastics, and a real eye-catching gym suit there.
Beautiful back pirouettes, spotted so well. And by contrast, a totally different type of routine to the last. Sensuous also in its way. An instrumental piece of apparatus which left a lot to the imagination, but tremendous interpretation and use of the music.
A long-levered athlete as well, so the pirouettes and the leaps really given extra focus, or really made it look that much prettier. Well, it's a perfect 10 for Serbianskaya, so she's guaranteed top position. You cannot score any higher, but Armenia Zaripova of Russia, who is the world champion in clubs, must do the same just to take joint top spot.
Beautiful triple spin. I don't think the choice of leotard is particularly good for television, because she doesn't, she blends into the background rather than stands out. And I'm sure it must be the same from a judging perspective. All of the rhythmic gymnasts have fulfilled the present rule book, and when a gymnast works far beyond the call of the rules, there's nothing in there to cater for her excellence, and that's why we end up having so many gymnasts getting 10, really. The rules will be upgraded after the Olympics this year. thing happened in artistic gymnastics a while ago.
That's a very important point, Monica, with 3 10s in the rope competition, having a three-way tie for first position. Really does, even the layman knows that it's time for a shake-up of the criteria. Just needs to be made a little more difficult, like we've seen in artistic gymnastics. And it's a good thing, one has to say, because it tends to take the level on to another degree as the athletes aspire to the judging criteria once again. Elmina Saripova answers the call that was required and scores the perfect 10. Well, back to that beam competition now, which has been thrown wide open. If you remember, Lilia Podkopayeva falling off the beam halfway through her exercise. So Romania's world floor champion and former European champion Gina Gergian now looks to claim top position in the beam final.
I think those little connections at the end were just a little bit feeble. Flick to one layout. Gergian has been a splendid gymnast in her time, but I think now she is more an anchor girl to the Romanian team rather than one of those expected to win high international honours at Atlanta. That's the way I perceive it anyway. Looking at her quality of work, she still has some of the skills, but certainly does lack on the execution side. And at this point in time, certainly doesn't look at her fittest. Just a sense of slight slackness around the legs and a reduction in her difficulty, knowing what she can produce and what she's producing right now. Nice combination finish, but of course there is always the possibility that she is in the team for Atlanta, has already been chosen, and just getting her body nice and healthy before she trims it down for the big competition season, knowing she's got the European, the Worlds, and Atlanta.
And all those competitions brought to you on Eurosport. Be sure to check out in your satellite broadcast guides, because the team will be at both the Europeans, highlights from the Worlds, and Everyday Live from Atlanta. One of France's top rhythmic gymnasts is Eva Serrano, 9th in the World Championships at 95, but already qualified for Atlanta, so a little bit of the pressure is off this French performer, now just looking to fine-tune her performances with the games in mind.
If I could draw attention to the comparison in the two performers, and where one is 9th in the world and the others are in the top 3, and this is the lack of use of the body. She works very much arms and legs, where if you watch the Bulgarians, the Ukrainians and the Ukrainians, they move every part of their body constantly. She's rather wooden in the back by comparison, even though some of her skills are excellent. Leg range is beautiful. Yes, catches and spins and leaps, most certainly not lacking. But as an observation, in comparison to the very, very best in the world, just lacking in the use of the body. Body waves and manipulations, showing every segment of the spine and chest as they work. having to wait for the catch, really, rather than arriving and catching. And their splendid range. They rather rounded back on that turn rather than the extended chest. Excellent mark there, 9.95. I would question whether that was worthy.
Well, the French challenge continues, this time in the artistic beam final. Ludivine Fernand for France. Very much an improved performer with a bronze medal in the World Championships in the beam. Obviously the national beam champion. And just 15 years of age, again, quite a lot of pressure on this youngster for a medal in Atlanta.
And almost the same mistake on the same movement as Podkopieva. But there on the fourth element, she did flick, layout, then into flick to chest roll, and Podkopieva only on the third element. Probably just negative thoughts causing it. She didn't look tremendously offline, but difficult to assess from the side. Whoops, and she's really battling there with her nerves. Front somersault. This really is a piece of apparatus where the gymnast must be positive. And just the language, she's beam hunting, looking at the apparatus all the time, looking rather negative. They're reproducing the Corbett skill without the pike, but very accurately. But not taking her eyes off the beam during her poses. Intense concentration for the dismount. Arab spring, double back, nearly missed footing. And I would suspect she'd be quite pleased to get that over. But at 15 from France, probably not very, very widely experienced, but I think a nervous day for her in front of a home crowd.
All part of the learning curve, all part of the experience before going off to the Summer Olympic Games in Atlanta. Gina Goghian is leading and seems to be leading quite comfortably in this beam final. 9.762 was her score. And there the same mistake, almost identical to Lilia Podkopieva, who was the big favourite, but certainly the dismount a little stronger, a little more confident, but quite rightly pointed out by Monica Phelps. She looked at her happiest when she was walking away from the apparatus rather than walking on.
And also the slow motion detected that she was a little bit wrong-footed on the landing.
The judges marking accordingly, 9.250, good enough to go into third position. Well, back to the last performer in the club's final, and this is Diana Popova. Such a good record, Bulgaria, with their rhythmic gymnasts. But she'll need to score a 10 if she's to finish among the top performers here today.
Unfortunately, no chance now, having dropped or not caught the apparatus, should I say, even though the penalty isn't tremendously high. Just on general comparison, you couldn't possibly give that, even if it was absolutely beautiful, a 10. Such an obvious error. Turning split leaps. Notice the catches being done from both right to left and left to right, and both tremendous test of coordination. You can't even do the juggling, let alone the acrobatics at the same time.
Certainly the competition in the rhythmic the event has been world-class, with 10s being scored in each and every final, with the ribbon, of course, still to go. But Diana Popova, well, not quite as effective as Petrova, the most famous of all Bulgarian rhythmic gymnasts right now. And for me, not quite bettering the performances of the world all-around and world club champion, both scoring a 10, Serbianskaya and Zarepova for the Ukraine and Russia.
Certainly such an exquisite standard of work. The girls so honed and beautifully bodily prepared to produce musical interpretation and dynamic skills with the hand apparatus. And 9.75 really does describe the fact that the drop did cost her quite dearly.
Galieva for Russia in all kinds of balance troubles at the beginning of her beam routine.
Quickly out for acrobatic skills. A very dynamic and not a very mobile gymnast, so she really needs to move quickly across the beam and put in as many skills as possible. So every sport has its tactics. Gymnastics, if you move quickly, then if you have a range problem, it's not so apparent. You've heard the old saying, you roll a penny fast and it rolls a long way. And if a gymnast moves quickly along the beam, you travel a long way and don't fall off. Really is motoring through the routine. Whoops. All on the... I think all the gymnasts really being psyched out of the chest rolls. That, of course, did have a full twist, which is slightly different. But it really must be approached so positively. Galieva really has had quite a long gymnastics career. Even some of the women doing very well to stay at the top for 6 or 7 years. Perhaps in a little bit of pain. Not quite landing symmetrically on her full twist. And quite a hefty wobble there at the beginning. So she'll be well down, if not even just about a 9, I would suspect. 9.1, 9.2. And that. Yes, just squeezing into the 9s, 9.075, but very obvious mistakes. Categorically losing a 5/10 and a 2/10.
So only one performer really having a clean routine in the women's beam competition. Confirmation of the results from both the beam and the club's finals. Georgian, 9.762. The big disappointment, Lilia Podkopaeva. I'm sure she'll be back in the Worlds and the Europeans. And once again, the 10s are all out in the club's final. Just a quick note that while that was going on, we were unable to bring you pictures of the men's vault competition. Congratulations to Samuel Dumont of Into the Ribbon. Amina Zaripova, joint first in the club's section of the rhythmic competition.
from Zarapova. Pirouettes on bent knees and miscatch of the hand apparatus.
Only qualifying for 2 of the 4 individual apparatus finals. Final one going perfectly to plan. That's 10, and again we'll have to face stiff opposition from Serbianskaya and Lukianenko still to make their challenges in the ribbon final.
Ranked equal 5th in the world and joint world champion in the ball exercise. So we really have got a bevy of stars at this France Telecom Rhythmic Championship. I mentioned the floor earlier. The artistic gymnasts work on a sprung floor and the rhythmic gymnasts work on a non-sprung floor with a woolen carpet.
Certainly very dynamic and quick, paying dividends. Ivanov going into first position. Larissa Lukianenko for Belarus. Here's another performer that has had a fantastic competition. In 2 out of her 3 finals in the individual apparatus competition, she has scored 10. This is her last, and it really will be a very impressive performance if that perfect score can be achieved once again.
To choose between all of the rhythmic gymnasts, but here a special quality of projection demonstrated. She almost shares the routine with the audience. She really involves you a great deal with her and her routine, and that comes from the use of eyes, looking forward in between the skills. And once again, sensual, teasing, charismatic performance.
And each and every one different as well. Tremendous creativity from all of the performances from Lukianenko. No question, she's one of the world's best. Silver medalist in the recent World Championships, 95 that is, in this, the ribbon. That's another breathtaking performance, and a lot of the members of the crowd have come to see the stars of artistic gymnastics, and one feels that the rhythmic gymnasts have won a lot of friends here in the Bercy Stadium.
The sport of gymnastics growing so tremendously because there's sports acrobatics, there's sports aerobics, there's artistic gymnastics, rhythmic gymnastics. And
6-2, big surprise there. Rustam Charipov going into second position. Serbianskaya of the Ukraine, another performer that has scored the perfect 10 twice so far, looking for her third top score to go out on a high note in this last of the 4 individual apparatus finals in the rhythmic competition, the ribbon.
a very, very clever opening to the exercise. Movement of the feet in unison to the circling of the ribbon, most effective. And notice that they handle the ribbon from both ends, both from the handle and the tail. They really have to have amazing control and awareness of where that ribbon is.
Yet another flawless performance from Ekaterina Starbianskaya of the Ukraine, showing all of the crowd and Eurosport viewers why she was the world champion of last season. And I can't separate that one from the performance of Lukianenko. I don't know whether the judges can. It looks like another 10 in the rhythmic competition. But again, wonderfully entertaining from start to finish. I have to agree with you once again, Monica, that the opening was just wonderful.
I think until perhaps Tariff, that is the difficulty of what they do, is added on to the performance score, then it's always going to be very, very difficult to separate the performers. So they could say have a mark for execution, a bit like ice skating really, and then a mark for difficulty, and that is the only way that you could segregate first, second and third.
Certainly on these kind of performances, it's going to be a very difficult task indeed at the Olympic Games, with 3 performers sharing top position in the rope, 2 in the clubs, and it's looking like 2 in the ribbon. We certainly can't spot any major fault which would give the judges cause to take away a point or 2, and there is the confirmation. Starbianskaya and Lukianenko, confirmation of the top performances from the ribbon. Third spot to Zaripova of Russia, Popova of Bulgaria. Coming up in the last section of our action from the Bercy Stadium of both the Artistic and Rhythmic International from France Telecom, the women's floor exercise and the men's high bar. Gina Gosian in action once again, as well as Dina Kochikova, and one of our favourites here on Eurosport, Aliez Pigan of Slovenia. We'll be back after these few messages. Stay tuned. To be decided. And we have the floor exercise and final for the women and the men's high bar. Another very closely contested competition, getting the action underway. One of France's top performers, runner-up in their national championships this year, but quite an experienced floor performer, 16-year-old Cécile Conqueto, up against the world's best, including Lilia Podkopayeva, Gina Gosian, and coming up shortly, Britain's Annika Reeder, our own Commonwealth champion in the floor. Conqueto gets this women's final underway.
With flick, triple twist rather to open. Generally find girls who are taller and slender use twists more, and the more compact, shorter gymnasts are suited more to somersaulting. And of course the most complete gymnast does a fair share of both. Conqueto really suited to twisting, demonstrating their handspring, full twisting front into tap front. Not really good musical interpretation. It's much more of a background than working to it, which seems to be pretty common now in artistic gymnastics. Picking a piece of music that is suitable to the gymnast but they're not particularly working to it. 1 minute 13 gone on the clock and must be finished by 1:30. Another triple twist, so she doesn't have any multiple somersaults, which sets her at a distinct disadvantage. Despite its artistry and difficulty, because of the lack of variety of somersaulting, she will be strongly disadvantaged. This is the final tumble. 1, 2, 3 twists.
One of the world's greats takes to the floor, Gina Gaugian. She's chasing Cécile Conquito of France, 9.637. Gina Gaugian, a former European champion, has already claimed 1 apparatus final to beam here today.
Double layout, but stepped out of the floor area. Careless, compulsory 10th. Quite finishing the full twist in the split there. But that's a very nice jumping turn. And again, not quite making the double spin. At least not coming out through développé, as really at this level of competition it should be to clearly mark the end of the move. Handspring double twisting front into punch front front, a very nice forward tumble there. You can see how these gymnasts really do have to put in an awful lot of all-around training to be able to form such high technical skills when they're tired. And there, Gaugian doing brilliantly after a very fast-moving routine to put in a full twisting double back.
Gina Gaugian of Romania putting the pressure on the 2 big favourites who are still to perform, Lilia Podkopayeva and Dina Kochetkova, the Ukrainian and Russian number 1s. But Gina Gaugian, one feels, having a very good competition here. Monica, she never really looks to seem that happy with her work, but never that sad at the same time.
No, she is a very intense little gymnast, and I think really that is something that she doesn't portray. She doesn't portray enjoyment, and perhaps her visual image of looking more relaxed could help her work to a greater degree. But she's got excellent focus, because really it's attitude rather than aptitude that's got her where she's reached in gymnastics.
And one of the few gymnasts who will not be perturbed by the atmosphere and nerves of the Olympics in Atlanta. The world champion of 1995, my co-commentator's favourite performer, Lilia Podkopayeva of the Ukraine. She's got to better 9.712 easily within this youngster's grasp.
Double front from one of her specialities, forward tumbling, but I don't know whether or not she overdoes the forward tumbling. We'll have to have a look. Podkopayeva, the reigning world champion on floor. Quite a different physique to most world champions. Chunky-legged, and yet you can never say she's overweight, and she has a wonderful leg line. There we have 3 forward tumbles, and I think they're the bias to forward tumbling too great, as in sometimes is the case, the bias to backward tumbling. Good spin, spin, twist series. Now what is her final tumble going to be? She's already done double front, 1.5 twisting front, front walkout, handspring, fly spring, Rudy. Lovely gymnastics, but for me, the bias far too much towards forward tumbling, and therefore I don't think she's worthy of overhauling Gaugian. Handspring, fly spring, straight front, full twisting front. That's one of her tumbles. And they are splendid, absolutely fantastic tumbles. And there, the front, walk out, handspring, fly spring, the master of the fly spring. And there, a 1.5 twisting front somersault, commonly called a Rudy.
.700, the world champion, unable to get the better of the Romanian. Britain's 17-year-old Commonwealth floor champion, coached by Rod Smith from the Essex School of Gymnastics, Annika Rieder.
Annika, one of the best floor workers in the world, and such a pity that she isn't as good on 4 pieces as she is on floor, because she has a particular charm. Aesthetically, she's beautiful. A very charismatic performer. Handspring Rudy, flick double twist. Nice split jump into Shishinova. But just a few hesitations on her landings. A little bit wobbly around the ankles on occasions. Full twisting Shishinova. But this is good musical interpretation. I feel that so many gymnasts avoid the issue of working to the music, and they don't get penalized sufficiently. Double twisting front, just squeezing that extra twist in. And again, Annika working with a strong bias to forward tumbling, but at least she did have a double twist in. And I think looking at a touch breathless, where you see Gaugian and Podkapayeva walk off as they're obvious, so unbelievably fit.
European Championships for women coming up in May, the 16th to the 19th in Birmingham, which will bring a huge amount of support for Annika Rieder in her quest to perhaps take one of the individual titles in those Europeans and hopefully get a spot to Atlanta. But it's going to be tough because, as you rightly said, the other apparatus just not quite as strong as Annika would perhaps need to secure a spot in Atlanta. 9.537, 4th position, but in the men's Europeans, 9th till the 12th of May in Copenhagen. The 1994 world floor champion next to go, Dina Kochetkova. Gina Gaugian still in top position, 9.712 is the target score.
Nice double layout. Kochetkova and Korkina, quite an awesome pair when in a team event. Korkina not present at this competition, and I understand she was expected by the French Federation, and when Leonid Arkiev was asked why she wasn't here, he said it was because he chose the team. Now that's a double-edged answer really, because it could be that he's saving her for the European, or it could be that he prefers Kochetkova. Ready for a change in tempo? But again, not working to the music. The music's racing away and she's standing still, and I do think they ought to be penalized. Full in, back out, full twisting double, the back somersault out, landing a little bit short. Beautifully executed, but not the content and the speed of Gaugian's, whilst the quality of work, I think, was better. Lovely leg extension, good height on the full in, but a heavy penalty on the landing of the back out.
And that stumble on the last tumble just could give the judges the reason they need to score her below Gaugian. 9.712. No question of the grace and composure in the balance part of the exercise, the bravery and dynamic movement, but there, 9.70. Getting the better of the world champions of 95 and of 94, Podkovieva and Kochetkova in joint second position, Conqueto there down in fourth. This is just the beginning of our coverage of artistic gymnastics and rhythmic gymnastics throughout the spring and summer here on Eurosport. We'll be with you for the Europeans, that's the men in Copenhagen, and the women in Birmingham in May, and of course the Olympic Games in Atlanta from the 20th to the 30th of July. Both myself, Nick Fellows, and Monica Phelps bringing you each and every medal decision live here on Eurosport. I hope you've enjoyed our coverage from the Bercy Stadium. We've certainly enjoyed it. From Nick Fellows and Monica, bye-bye for now.